What seem harmless but can be seriously life-threatening. Poor dental hygiene can lead to heart disease, as well as brain abscess. Any untreated infection in your face, sinus, ear, tooth, can travel to your brain. All I've learned from this thread is that it's a miracle any of us are still alive. After rewatching the Final Destination movies for Halloween, I realized how anything could take a bad turn and get us killed. Wet tile. This is exactly why those prank videos of people putting butter on the tiles for people to slip on make me so angry. You can kill someone surprisingly easily that way. It's not funny at all. On the beach. Oh. Look. The water is going way out. Double quote. Yeah. If you see that, just start running to the top of a high hill or something. Get as high as you can on stable ground. Island beaches. There are a lot in Hawaii that are a lot more dangerous than tourists realize. Islands are on the edge of the vast ocean and can sweep people in. My husband, who has had too many near-death experiences, was out a bit at the popular tourist attraction Hanoma Bay with his uncle and we couldn't find him for a while. It was right as the tide was going down and he had to avoid both the coral and being pulled out. He was lucky to have made it back. I don't think I, or he, even, truly understood the severity of the situation until a few years later when we actually lived in Hawaii and weren't dumb college students anymore. I'll tell this story again. I went to same beach in Hawaii as I had been my whole life and swam out in the ocean for a bit. I'm a strong swimmer and never had any problems. But that one day, I caught in a rip and got pulled out really far. Fight or flight kicked in and I tried to swim in the rip despite knowing not to do it. I became exhausted and knew if I didn't stop and slowly go parallel to the beach I was going to drown. I finally got out of the rip and had to lie on my back for a bit to regain my strength before swimming back in. It was terrifying. I swam all the time. I was an experienced swimmer. But all it took was getting in that situation for all rational thought to disappear. Water. Surprising amount of people die of drowning. This should be higher up. Worst part of drowning is that the process can happen quickly and quietly. And many times there's someone nearby who could have saved the drowning person if they'd recognized what was happening sooner. For a serious, and somewhat generic, answer. Probably not getting enough sleep or not drinking enough water. I am guilty of both of these things but it can really make you feel like utter shit and lead to serious health complications. This and stress. Lack of sleep combined with a toxic, draining relationship over a long time can not only FCK you up mentally. For me it made my immune system bad as shit. Basically being ill all the time and every cold getting quite severe. Could only lay in bed. Once my ex called an ambulance cause I was coughing like crazy and had bad trouble breathing. Was still just a cold bronchitis. I'm no longer in that relationship plus I get enough sleep most of the time now, haven't been ill in at least half a year I think. Pranking someone with allergies by giving them a little bit of that allergen. I've seen articles of people putting peanuts into an allergic person's food. Emotional neglect. When you have everything, people always brush it off as being too needy or whatever. But in reality lifelong emotional neglect, especially during childhood development, it can impact your life deeply. You can become depressed, anxious and have anxiety. Untreated, this can lead to suicidal ideation or leading you to addictive behavior such as alcoholism, drug use, etc. If you suspect that you might suffer from this, I have plenty of resources to help guide you to healing and growth. Comment or message. Saving someone with a Heimlich grip. You can definitely rupture someone's organs with this move and people have died as a result of being saved by this procedure. Always send someone to the hospital after doing this as the victim might otherwise bleed to death in their sleep that night. Birth control pills. In some women, they can cause blood clots, DVT or deep vein thrombosis. These clots can form anywhere in the body. Sometimes the blood clots can dislodge and get carried by blood to lungs, pulmonary embolism, or heart attack. When blood clotting occurs in the brain, cerebral thrombosis, they can cause a stroke. Edit. I would also like to share that last year I had a CVT stroke because I had been on estrogen BC for 8 months. 8 months. That's all it took. Out of the blue. I had severe headache that felt like someone was hitting the back of my head with a baseball bat. Every second. I lost motor control in my arms and legs. Couldn't see properly or understand anything. I even forgot my name. Turns out all major veins in my brain were completely clogged by clots. It took over a year of rehab, but luckily I have fully recovered. I hope and wish this never happened to anyone ever. Sorry for the long text. Mushrooms. There is a saying. There are old mushroom hunters. And bold mushroom hunters. But there are no old bold mushroom hunters. Crossing the road. Even when doing it properly. Which is why I look both ways the entire time I cross the road. I've seen how some of y'all drive and it doesn't inspire confidence. My answer. Stairs. I fell down the stairs when I was 13 and couldn't sit for like 2 months, and I now have a bony bump on my hip 10 years later. In hindsight, I wonder if I mildly broke my pelvis and it healed wrong. But yeah. Stairs can seriously FCK you up. Childbirth. A surprising amount of people go into pregnancy not realizing how bad it can be and end up with some sort of impairment, disability, or even death because of it. My mom almost died birthing my youngest sibling. The US has high maternal mortality rates. And yet people act like you're crazy when you say you don't want kids. And then after a traumatic childbirth. Apparently every OB is trained to say you will forget about all the pain. When the hell am I supposed to forget about pushing for agony for 4 hours only to get my vag sliced open and break my tailbone? Pretty sure I still remember. But for real. Thank God I didn't die. Not doing the dishes and mum coming home. It's like forgetting to take the chicken out of the freezer and you hear the garage door opening. Leaving a tampon in too long can cause toxic shock syndrome and it can be deadly. I'm so freaking glad they've come up with alternatives to tampons and pads. If I ever have a girl daughter get her period as early as I did, I'm getting her period panties. They would have saved me so much embarrassment in elementary and middle school. Drinking a lot of water. There are loads of people who drank over 2 liters in a few minutes at a party and got themselves killed. It's called hyponatremia and is actually when the sodium levels in the blood are too low. BC there is excess water. Fun fact. It's also the #1 cause of death for people who die on MDMA. Shingles. It is already inside you. It is miserable. I had shingles at 30 on my right side shoulder, neck, scalp and ear mostly. It can come back again. And in a different place. I am scared of it being on my face and blinding me. Diarrhea. Lactose intolerant person here. I have gotten pretty badly dehydrated from diarrhea after having dairy. Drink a lot of water during and after. Walking around or behind a horse without keeping your hand on it. Horses can get very scared very fast and a well-placed kick can beak your neck, leave you a vegetable or even stop your heart. If you must move around one, keep a hand on it after it is aware of your presence and slide it with you so it knows where you are. Also stay very close to it the whole time so the potential kick has less wind up. Popping your neck can cause a stroke. It's rare but essentially you can dislodge a blood clot and shoot it up to your brain. Jesus Christ, is this true? Once I cracked my neck and felt something shoot up to my head and it caused a migraine immediately. I should note I have chronic migraine syndrome, but OMG, this is so terrifying. Chickens. Just Google it. Plenty of times where people got pecked on a major vein or artery and bled to death. I only found 2 instances. One was an elderly woman with pre-existing conditions, hypertension, varicose veins, etc. And the other was because the idiot was cockfighting and the rooster had a knife attached to his spurs. Not saying those are the only 2 occurrences, but it seems exceedingly rare. Eating cinnamon. I went to elementary school before drugs were any kind of an issue. But some kids used to buy cinnamon oil and peddle it just like a drug. It was banned by the school. They'd buy a small vial at a drugstore and stuff it with toothpicks. and then sell the toothpicks. One kid got sloppy with the stuff and got burns on his face. First degree, I think. No peeling. But his cheek was red for a few days. Poor nutrition. Overload in sugars. Bad immune system. Using a cheese grater. One wrong move and you can cut your wrist open. Honestly, just driving back and forth from work always seems so benign that I forgot to be thankful for getting home safely. Car accidents are one of the leading causes of death in the US. Kids who let the escalator slide their shoes from the stairs to the platform. Also animals going on escalators period. If you don't want to know why, then don't Google escalator degloving. My parents let myself and my siblings loose in an airport when we were kids, where we found the longest unattended operating escalators in the universe, and my brothers and I slid down the entire thing repeatedly for an hour. Pretty sure my parents went to a bar. I look back on that with hard judgmental eyes towards my parents that we weren't hurt. A friend got into an accident and hit his face on a tree. He had his septum pierced and it ripped and he was being drowned in the blood. He did end up surviving though, but it was up in the air if he was going to. Sunburns can be very dangerous. Normally you don't think too much of them. Just a few days of irritated itchy skin. But if you aren't careful, you drastically increase your chance of getting malignant melanoma, skin cancer, through a handful of decent sunburns. Binge eating. I battled food addiction my entire life. It's no joke. I managed to get it under control a few years ago and lost 100 pounds. Depression came back this year though and I gained it all back. But I'm not losing hope. I know if I fought the addiction once I can do it again. I need to be around as long as I can for my children. The spider bite I got in the UK that put me in hospital for 2 days. When I was 9 months old, I got a spider bite and they had to surgically remove the piece of skin that was bitten so it could drain. The doctors said if it was left untreated it could have entered my bloodstream and I would have died. I'm 15 now and I still have pretty big scars from that. Mixing alcohol and acetaminophen or ibuprofen. Very bad for your liver, could be fatal. It is a bad idea in general to mix alcohol with medication of any type. Ibuprofen doesn't affect the liver. I wouldn't say it's safe to take with alcohol. It can mess up your stomach lining, especially if you do it a lot, but if you feel like you absolutely need some sort of pain relief when you have alcohol in your system, it's much safer than acetaminophen. Springs and double pane windows. The windows are heavier than you think, so the springs are pretty strong. A friend that works as a maintenance guy at an apartment complex posted a pic of one of the balancers, as they're called, that came loose and went completely through the motorcycle helmet he wears when replacing them. It still cracked his skull. And the ER doc said if he wasn't wearing the helmet he would have definitely died. Scary to think something as simple as a window can kill you. We all know garage springs are dangerous. But so are window springs. Eating can turn into addiction. As an avid watcher of my 600-pound life, almost all of those people had major trauma growing up. 7/10 were sexually assaulted at some point in their lives, or otherwise rough childhoods. They're eating away their emotional pain and food gives them pleasure and it becomes an addition. UTIs. Only recently I found out how dangerous they are. I was scared to tell my mom, so it went and treated for a week. Constant urge to piss was annoying, but Google told me it could go away on its own. Until I woke up in immense pain, pissing blood, and throwing up neon orange. Ended up in the ER at 3 AM loaded on painkillers and antibiotics. Turns out it can cause kidney failure. The SX education system has failed me once again. Using an air hose to remove dust from clothing or the body. Air can get into tiny cuts and from there into the bloodstream. It's very dangerous and can lead to death. Yeah, not sure about that. Air emboli are really uncommon and take a really deliberate or neglectful scenario in order to happen. If you've ever had an IV, you've had some foreign air get in there. I don't even think air can even get in through a cut. Biting your nails. Maybe not life-threatening, but it can lead to some real shit. It can lead to ingrown nails, which can cause bad infections. Heartbreak. It can literally cause distress in the aortic valve, and over time with enough distress tear open. Not massively, but just enough. Not wearing gloves in the winter. A shocking number of old people die because their hands are cold, so they put them in their pockets, and then when they slip on the ice they can't brace themselves and end up breaking a hip. I always tell my older patients the best piece of safety equipment they can buy for winter is a good pair of gloves. Giving birth at home. It's really trendy right now, but so many people, mothers and babies, die from it every year. And almost all are preventable. Someone else mentioned how dangerous pregnancy is, but seriously, I wish I could talk people out of this specifically. This dumb, reckless trend killed one of my best friends and her daughter because, even with a midwife, there was no way to get them to the hospital in time or stop her bleeding. It's not worth it. Don't kill yourself or your child for some stupid clout. Not wearing a seatbelt. Not driving well. Not getting a flu shot, or not wearing a mask because you want a chance at not having decent social skills, street smarts, or common sense. Mixing household cleaning products. Bleach and ammonia can be deadly. When combined, these release toxic chloramine gas. Exposure to chloramine gas can cause irritation to your eyes, nose, throat, and lungs. Those AI run D&D things, like AI Dungeon for example. I remember playing it for a couple weeks and then feeling like everyone I was talking to was just another NPC with AI generated answers. If I kept playing, who knows where I'd be socially right now. I bit a hangnail once. A week later I was in the hospital. 3 operations, and a week later they won the fight to save my hand. It had gotten infected because it bled and I sucked it. I had probably done that 100 times in my lifetime. Someone mentioned birth control pills, so I would like to throw in the shot depot as well. Apparently, if you use it for over 2 years it begins removing the minerals from your bones, leading to brittle bones. This is often permanent and can lead to osteoporosis.